If pirated ticket prices are anything to go by, then the new production of Othello in London must be a success. But people may not be paying £2,000 because of their love of Shakespeare, rather through a desire to see Ewan McGregor up close and personal in Michael Grandage's new production of the Donmar Warehouse. Ewan McGregor claims that making his Shakespearean debut in front of just 250 people is the most terrifying challenge of his career. He plays the treacherous Iago, who plants dangerous conceits in the mind of Othello, which burn like the mines of sulphur. Chiwetel Ejiofor's interpretation of the Moor of Venice is younger than the traditional version of Othello. The power of the tragedy is undiminished over the centuries. Othello, manipulated by Iago, is driven to murderous jealousy of Desdemona, played by Kelly Riley, over the wrongful suspicion of an affair with his deputy, Cassio, Tom Hiddleston. So do you think, Mark, that all these pirated ticket prices, is it justified for Ewan McGregor's performance?
Well, look, I make no bones about this. I love Ewan McGregor. I think he is the natural descendant of, Malcolm McDowell. I think he has fantastic physical presence. I think his voice is wonderful. I've read a couple of reviews that say, oh, he's only there because he's famous. What nonsense. He commands the stage. His delivery is absolutely smashing. I mean, I sat there, 5 foot away from him, as you do in the Donmar, and thought, I have no problem with his performance at all. I think it is really good. I think he's a board treader of the highest order, and I really thought he ripped the performance up, and I thought he was great.
And do you think he got across the complexities of the character of Iago? Inverted commas, honest Iago, but of course the traitor...
I'm afraid not. I thought that he got the honest Iago perfectly. This was an Iago you could completely understand people falling for, but, but Othello would listen to him and that he could manipulate. But he certainly had an incredible presence and strength. What I missed in the performance was what was underneath that mask. We've had Iagos that want to sleep with Othello or with Desdemona or even with Cassio. All I could tell was he didn't want to sleep with his wife. Apart from that, I could understand what was motivating him.
Yeah, I'm with that. I mean, I thought that it was very menacing, and you believed that, and you believed his kind of evil as well as his charm, and that was brilliant. He was a very sort of, bipolar character. But what was motivating him? I mean, there wasn't an obvious sexual tension between him and Othello, and it was very hard to see. I mean, he kept you suspended in it, but every so often when you kind of came out of it and questioned it, you thought, well, hang on a minute. Quite wisely.
But well, I suppose the conventional interpretations are that he was upset because he'd been bypassed to be.
Well, that's the narrative. Yeah, that's the narrative explanation. But the fact is, I think his performance has a psychotic undertone, which you're overlooking. I don't think it's not like a motivation, like as you say. Is it sexual? Is it whatever? I think it is that he genuinely acts like a slightly psychotic character. His character in this, it reminds me of Malcolm McDowell in Clockwork Orange.
Yeah, when he was silent, he had that extraordinary thing that he could look utterly dead. I was watching him sometimes when he wasn't speaking, and when he wasn't the centre of attention. There was this extraordinary deadness in his eyes, a sort of an existential emptiness.
But that is because he's a brilliant physical performer.
It's because he's a great star, I think, rather necessarily than a great...
No, but actually that's not true.
Are you saying the deadness was deliberate, or was
I agree
his performance?
Oh, I think it was deliberate. No, I mean deliberate. He can certainly do that. But as I say, I think in terms of nuance, especially up against that Othello, which was so multi-layered and so extraordinary.
This is Chiwetel Ejiofor's performance. What did you
Which was magical. And actually, just to say further on Ewan McGregor, I mean, before we go on, I mean, the fact actually he is a great actor because he can stand and be still without having to kind of fritter himself all across it. He can go into the background, and still be there. And that was absolutely brilliant. And that I agree. But Ejiofor's performance was extraordinary, and I thought he was the most sympathetic Othello I think I'd ever seen. I mean, I loved the fact that this was not done as a military play with masses of sort of iron clanking everywhere, and that he was very soft and very charismatic, and you really felt the sense of a highly cultured, intelligent man adrift in a world that he wasn't quite sure of, and that how much he loved her, and therefore the sense of the betrayal was wonderful because he was so gentle himself.
He was so vulnerable, wasn't he?
He is. I mean, it's a very, very peculiar role, because the fact is it's such an unsympathetic role in the arc of the character. But I think you're absolutely right.
Not in this version.
I think of course it's unsympathetic in as much as he says at the beginning, I'm absolutely in love with this. I'm totally in love with it. And marvellous, he says, I'm not somebody who's easily given to jealousy, after having just demonstrated that he is fantastically easily given to jealousy and is a lousy judge of character. But what what Ejiofor does is he brings sympathy to a character which is unsympathetic.
He brings charm, sympathy, charisma, and power, and it's a really hot combination.
And a very subtle interpretation, I thought, of Shakespeare's language. There's no sense at any point that he was reciting those lines.
He got the poetry. He got the poetry
it.
perfectly, and he uses a very interesting accent in this play. He makes it a very African accent. In his first appearance is in African costume with a sort of a bright. The only colour on the stage is the sash that he wears, and then as you begin to hear this language being used about him, my white you being tupped by the black ram, or whatever,
Black ram being tupped by your white you,
thick lips. You understand, for me, it was so vividly this time, that this is a man in the wrong world, that this world is going to destroy him. And I found, I have never sat to an Othello more where I have wanted to get up and shout and say, no, don't listen to him. They're lying to you. This is not fair. I was so on his side.
Desperately want to do its ending, don't you?
So what about the white you, Desdemona, Kelly Riley?
She, to me, was the only bad thing in this. She irritated the hell out of me. I found her clingy, annoying, touchy-feely, and you thought, why do you love this woman? She's too needy. She sort of gave off this kind of frippery, nervous energy of, you know.
Although there was a very moving scene when she was being undressed to go to bed, and her maid is gradually
that was the best scene of hers.
which is this kind of lamb to the slaughter.
I understand exactly what you're saying. At the very beginning, I thought she was too coquettish and too sort of, adolescent at the very beginning. But actually, as her character then, descended into this maelstrom, I was more with her. And when we finally get to the moment of tragedy, I have to say, I thought that was so powerful that I almost wanted to not be in the same room with it. And that is a testament to her performance.
It was the undressing scene. It was almost a sort of. I understood her love for him. I've never understood in this play why Desdemona doesn't protest more. But it was almost a sort of a sacrifice for love. And the undressing scene and that very slow, followed by then this most incredibly violent killing of her, which was so shocking in the context of it all. By the end of it, she had completely won me over.
Well, Othello continues at the Donmar in London until February, and there are tickets released every day at the theatre. Now, there have been